Now, earlier, Sadell, we talked about inspirational leadership. And we sort of said, oh, well, you're born, not made. And I was conflating inspiration with being born. Does inspiration still matter?
Inspiration leadership is another one of the important toolkit elements because we have to make sure that we are raising the enthusiasm and the motivation of our community, that we are encouraging innovation, that we're creating a climate of excellence. And inspiration leadership is actually so important because we all need to figure out how to inspire others, because what does it yield?
High aspiration.
High aspiration.
Yeah.
High aspiration is the only way we can move towards a new vision.
Yeah.
We can move towards change. We can move towards our objectives and goals. So inspiring people is actually incredibly important, and we will all do it very differently.
Yeah.
Not everyone is kind of the sizzling, charismatic leader,
Yeah.
or you get on a microphone and everyone is enthralled. Not everyone is that type of leader.
Yeah.
But we all need to figure out, how do we inspire and motivate others? And how do we do it in a way that is authentic and that works for us?
Yeah. Can I ask you two questions? One is like, this to me also seems like something that you need to work on. It's not going to be this bolt of lightning. You have to keep practicing how to be inspirational.
Absolutely. You have to think about what inspires you, what do you think inspires others, and how do you develop the competency and the characteristics to
Yeah.
inspire. And a big part of it is actually communication skills.
Yeah.
And you work on it, you develop it, you
Practice it.
practice it
Practice.
over and over and over and over until it actually appears natural.
Yeah.
Some of the most inspiring people that I know actually spent so much time practicing
Yeah.
that ultimately it looks like it's natural. And people say to them, oh, you're a natural.
You're born.
You're born. You're a natural.
Yeah.
Actually, I've probably spent 100 hours practicing
Yeah.
this.
That's, I think, a lower bound on
Absolutely.
you. Yeah. The second point I was going to ask you is, and I'm going to make a confession. I'm actually an introvert. Right?
I am too.
Yeah. And so oftentimes introverts don't like inspiration because you sort of see it as fake. Like, oh, like that seems like what celebrities do, or, like the influencers do, whatever on social media, or TikTokers do, right? But you're telling us that this is a core part of leadership. So
Yeah.
how do I get over my introversion and the icky factor about like showing up and inspiring people? Like how do I get over that?
First of all, I too am a massive introvert,
Yeah.
but I'm not the type of introvert you described.
Yeah.
I don't think it's icky.
Yeah.
I actually feel really motivated and inspired when I see and hear people who actually have worked extremely hard in order to develop speeches and develop ways to get me to get this high aspiration.
Yeah.
And so the important thing here is that it's not only is it not icky, it is a requirement. Because
So
guess
you have
what?
to do it. You have to do it.
Guess what? Guess what? Suppose you have a vision, inventing the future.
Yeah.
That
That's what we want you to do.
that you think is so important. You see how you're going to change your community.
Yeah.
You see it, whether through entrepreneurship or building something in your environment. And you need to get funding. You need to get employees. You need to get followers. How do you do that if you don't inspire? So it's an imperative.
Yeah.
It's an absolute imperative. And the icky part goes away if you believe you're doing it on behalf of others and for others. It's not self-interest.
Yes.
It's for the collective good.
Yeah.
That's why
Yeah.
it's important. And by the way, being an introvert doesn't mean you're shy.
Yeah.
Being an introvert doesn't mean you can't develop these skills that are outward skills, because many of our colleagues and us, we're professors, we speak for a living, and we're profound introverts.
Yeah. So far, as we sort of think about the toolkit, we've covered the personal dimensions of leadership, We've covered the relational dimensions of leadership, the contextual dimension of leadership, and then we're sort of going into really the others, right? The inspirational side. What's next in the other side?
So there's two more,
Yeah.
two last ones.
Yes.
The next one is supportive
Yes.
leadership. And supportive leadership really fosters a sense of both individual and collective, what they call efficacy. Efficacy is a term that was developed by Al Bandura, who's a former, a late psychologist at Stanford, who talks about efficacy, which just essentially means that we have the confidence that we can do something, that we have the
That we can change the world.
that we can change the world, that we have the sense of capacity to do something, whether change the world, change our families, change our community.
Yeah.
It could be small, it could be big, but truly promotes confidence. It promotes accountability.
Yeah.
It avoids blaming.
Yeah.
There's no blaming when it comes to supportive leadership, but it also protects teams. So this is really important to foster a sense of either individual and team efficacy. And this supportive leadership sometimes requires following. Other times it requires mobilizing in order to advance the collective good.
And what does this yield? What does this yield for us?
Initiative. You know, we want people in our sphere of influence
Yeah.
to have enough confidence
Yeah.
to speak up, to
Yeah.
raise their hands,
Yeah.
to volunteer, to understanding the goal to say, you know, the best way to get there, I believe, is if we all do this,
Yeah.
even if we don't have a formal position.
Yes.
I know you love a Jack Welch.
Yeah.
Quote on this.
Yeah. So like I started my career at GE.
Yeah.
In 1993, in the last century.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm
Long
not old.
ago.
Long ago, in the last century. And Jack Welch was this visionary leader at General Electric, and I idolized him a ton. And one of his quotes I love and has really sort of stayed with me is this notion of giving people self-confidence. So what he said is, giving people self-confidence is by far the most important thing that I can do. He referring to himself as a leader, because then they will act, right? And so this notion that it yields initiative, right? Like if you are a supportive leader, right, you're enabling others to then take initiative, right? Then they will act. It gives them self-confidence. It's pretty profound.
You want people to act.
Yeah.
As a leader, you want people to act.
Because you can't do everything.
You can't do everything, and you don't want people to be dormant.
Yes.
You want people to help you come up with solutions. How many leaders I've been with, top leaders, who say, I don't know all the answers. I want some of these answers to bubble up
Yes.
from the people who are in the front lines,
Yeah.
for people who know. But that won't happen if you're not inspiring
Yeah.
supportive leadership in order for people to take initiative, in order to act, in order to have the confidence or the efficacy to act.
Amazing. So finally, we're at ethics and being responsible. Why is this important in the first place?
So it's called responsible leadership,
Yeah.
and it is where everything sits. Because it is about integrating all the components that we just discussed, the other 5 components
Yes.
that we discussed in our toolkit. And it fosters feelings that you're responsible from those inside and outside, that you have the ethical values, that I can trust you as
Yeah.
my leader to make great decisions for me, whether I'm a member of your organization or not, that I trust you. And this one is really interesting because it's not always by what people say that people determine whether or not someone has the responsible leadership toolkit. It's by watching what you do. You have to model the right behaviors all the time. You have to make the right decisions all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. Because in the absence of this, it all falls apart.
Yeah.
It's what integrates all the pieces that we've
Yeah,
discussed.
yeah. And can we have one more quote?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Robert Noyce, the inventors of the semiconductor revolution, said, if the ethics are poor at the top, that behavior is copied down through the organization. And that's why the responsibility is so important. So what does responsible leadership then yield?
It yields stewardship.
What does that mean?
Stewardship is a word that I think we all need to somehow internalize, because to be a steward of something means, and it goes back to acting like an owner, right? That we put the interest of our organization well above ourselves. We make sure that everyone is cared for, that the organization is cared for. That's what stewardship is.
Yeah.
And that we've been entrusted to do that. You know, leadership is serious, it's social science, but it's also incredibly consequential.
Yeah.
And this is where stewardship comes in, because the livelihood of people, many people, sometimes tens of thousands of people, can be influenced, shaped by a top leader. So that stewardship is also about the livelihood of so many people.
Yeah, it's not just livelihood, right? Because I study a lot of technology platforms and so forth. Billions of people use your services.
Yes.
Right? So it's not just your workers. Like if I think of a company like Ant Group,
Yes.
right? 15,000 employees, 1.2 billion users. So the stewardship responsibility is to a billion people.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
You know, I'm on the board of Rakuten,
Yes,
which is a
that's right.
Japanese e-commerce giant, and we have 1.8 billion
1.8?
users. 1.8 billion users.
Wow.
And what we do,
Yes.
and the CEO is a fantastic leader and friend, Hiroshi Mikitani,
Yes.
the decisions he makes not only affects the 30,000+ employees, but the 1.8 billion people that we serve. It's a very, very big deal. It's the beginning and the end. And in the absence of this responsible leadership, everything falls apart.
Okay, let's put this all together to summarize. So again, you've been in this journey with us about why leadership matters all the way now to the toolkits. There are 6 elements in the toolkits. And so, Tsedal, let's just think about those elements one by one and what they actually yield as a reminder for our aspiring leaders as to what they need to be doing.
So the first one is personal leadership, and it yields credibility. The second one is relational leadership, really important for trust.
Yeah.
The third one is contextual leadership, and it fosters a sense of belonging and identity, and that's incredibly important to yield community. From there, we have inspirational leadership, and that's important for high aspiration, which is related to supportive leadership, which really fosters people's interest to take initiative,
Take action.
take action.
Yeah.
And finally, responsible leadership, which is about stewardship.
Yeah.
And everything else rests on responsible leadership.
Fabulous. So, Tsedal, first, thank you so much for spending time with us on this. What advice do you have for our audience, for our aspiring leaders, as they take this as a serious lifetime almost focus of study, of practice, of doing and acting? What advice do you have for them?
Leadership is a decision. And it starts,
Wait, say that again.
leadership is a decision.
It's a decision.
It's a decision. To be a leader, you decide to be a leader. And you start,
Nobody tells you to be a leader. You have to decide.
you decide. You decide, and you start today. I would love for each and every one of you to start today by acting like an owner in your environment. You don't need formal authority. You don't need position. You just need to look around you and say, where is there a need? Don't walk by if you see something that needs to get picked up. Pick it up. Stop. If you need to speak up, speak up. If you see a problem, try to help solve it. So start acting like an owner, and this is where that little L in all of us can begin to get cultivated. And from there, you learn about leadership, and one day you will do leadership.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here with
Yeah.
you.